Welcome to Before They Were, the podcast / time capsule / documentary where we drop in with incredible beings living their aligned lives during their time on this beautiful planet. We are your co-host Los, aka River Flows, joined by my co-host Tim the Magic. Thanks for joining us today. Enjoy the journey. On this journey, we step in with my boy Funky, aka Alex Funk. The youngest person we've had on this podcast, and we talk about his journey from small town in Minnesota, 1,000 people, to becoming on his way to being a published author, probably on the New York Times bestseller, one of the most inspirational guys I know. Wise beyond his years, for sure. This is one of my favorites. Enjoy our conversation with Alex Funk.
Second hour.
Perfect. We can make an hour work. And I'm sure you'll come out in the future at some point. This is just the beginning little snippets for people.
It's not necessarily, so I talked to you about what the podcast is, like, why we started it, right?
Yep.
We do have questions, but more so where we like to start. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we've been live. Perfect.
Where we usually like to start on this episode, before Alex Funk is our number one question.
Your last name is Funk?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hell yeah.
Call him Funky, man.
Funky, that's why you call him Funky. I was
Yeah.
wondering. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he has great taste in music, so. So where we'd like to start, and you can take this question wherever you want to take it, however you interpret it, but where are you right now?
I have this, my intent bracelet. This is my build year. So my word of the year is build. And there's a lot of areas where this is like my build year. So when I think about my health, wealth, happiness, creative stuff, relationships, and then also with building my sales team, like my office, this is what I would call this is like my build year.
Fuck yeah. What is that? Where does that sort of tie in with the other years, like the other themes of the other years? What have they traditionally been?
This is the first year I had a theme.
Really?
Yeah, this is the first year I had a theme, and I got it because I would say this is like me. This year is a lot of transition. There's a lot of transition in my life this year, so I figured that it was right that I put a word to it, which was build.
Yeah.
But I want to do it every year now. Like, I want to do it every year going forward.
Build or have an intentional word for that year?
Have an intentional word of the year and like a theme to the year.
Yeah. I like that, especially with the bracelet. Like,
Yeah, I see it every day.
So do you ever take it off or no?
Never.
I love it.
Never.
Yep.
And I have this word all over, like a giant whiteboard in my room, build. Note on my desk at the office, build.
Yeah.
There's a book in my car, and it's called Build Back Better, and it's just like a small book. It has nothing to do with the propaganda Build Back Better, but
Yeah, that's where I went to.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought too.
Just for clarification's sake.
But that, I just see the word, now my mind just like gravitates towards it. But yeah, so it's on my body every day.
Love it, brother.
Should get a tattoo in.
You should.
Do it.
You could get it in the form of the bracelet.
Yeah.
You know?
Then it would never come off.
But then you keep a collection of them throughout the years.
By the
So
time
you know
you're
what each
50,
year
you have
was.
like a whole sleeve just full of different bracelets you had.
That actually would be dope.
I know.
That would be cool.
That would be dope.
And like every ideas.
So you're a young guy. I think you're probably the youngest guest. How old are you?
22.
22. I was gonna ask that. That's important for our podcast.
By far the youngest person that we've interviewed, and
That's
by
cool.
far one of the dopest 22-year-olds that I have ever met.
I don't think I know. I'm not currently friends with any 22-year-olds, to be honest. Like most people that we're
Yeah.
friends with are like our age,
Yeah, if not older.
if not older.
So I'm really interested to know, number one, what are the things that are lighting you up right now? And then I want to dive into how we got there, how we got to those things from who you were.
Yeah. Well, then I'll just go back through the categories. Like health-wise, I'm 3 weeks out from a physique comp, so I'm excited to step on stage and eat the foods I want to again in a couple of weeks. So, like that's been almost a year process now. Like the build up and then the prep down. So
He straight up he brought his food here, like on the plane.
Where'd you come from again?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. So
So
you brought a suitcase full of food.
Yeah, 23.2 pounds of food.
Good for you. Next level, man. People are like, there's not food for travel. This man,
this container is like in there right now.
So some of my protein blew up in my check bag too. So last night I got here at 1 a.m. and started a load of laundry.
Because it was just what
protein. It was like
powder.
Yeah, no, it was not powder. It was like mixed already. Like it was protein bottles.
Oh,
yeah, muscle milk.
Sure.
Well, now you know for next time, don't mix. Don't get the muscle milk.
Yeah. So that lights me up right now, health wise, wealth. Buying my third property this fall. Everything's kind of like in place to do that, which is really exciting. And then health, wealth, happiness, pacing towards hitting my YouTube subscriber goal, which sounds, and I'll explain why that's important. And then podcast goal. This is my first podcast of 5 for this year. So nice. Reaching 750 subscribers on YouTube and 5 podcasts has been kind of like the plan to get me to launching my book next year, which lights me up. And then creative, I have 1 song memorized on piano out of 2. So my goal all year has been memorize 2 songs. I have 1 down.
Dude,
so
what song is
so
it?
simple too.
All of Me, John Legend.
Let's go.
We can hit that in a heartbeat.
Can you sing that?
I can try.
Well, you know
Carlos
man.
can. I know Los can.
I got you.
This guy has got some pipes.
I got you, dude. We could
You remind me of John Legend a little bit, actually.
Dude, that's one of my favorite songs to sing.
It's true.
That's one of my favorite songs to sing. So we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, before we go too far onto that list, as far as like your health, is that something you've always been super diligent on? Is that like you've always been passionate about it, or was there a certain point in your childhood and upbringing that you're like, oh, I love taking care of my body in a sense?
Yeah, I was the chubby cousin, so that's kind of where like my desire to be healthy, and especially something like the physique comp where that comes from. All my cousins, and I have pretty much all boy cousins, and I'm the middle cousin, and I'm also the middle child, and so like I had 4 older cousins that had abs since they were 5 years old, and then younger cousins younger cousins, it was the same shit. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast.
Yeah. Fucking swear.
Okay. And so I was the chubby, like I was the chubby kid, and so that left me a lot of trauma. Like when we did work with Adrian, like that was the version of me I kept going back to. It was like the 11-year-old. Yeah. I just wish I was them. And so
been there.
When I was 15, I got into working out and tracking food. I basically tracked meals now since I was 15. So like 7 years straight, basically, of tracking food, because I'm like, there's still that obsession in me of like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm still the chubby cousin. And even though I'm 3 weeks out from my physique comp, like I still feel those feelings all the time.
Do you feel like when you have the physique competition, like that you'll shed that? Like you'll shed the identity of the chubby cousin?
I don't know. That was when I first set out to do it. That was the goal, but I feel like it's not rooted in
how you
that.
Look.
Yeah, like there's an identity shift that has to happen, and however that happens. But I don't know. I'm so close to stepping on stage that I don't even think stepping on stage, flexing and looking like I'm in the best shape. I don't even think that's gonna do it.
That's not gonna do it.
That's just a physical representation. It's not actually what that feeling is.
Totally.
I'm very interested to see how that ends up sort of like showing up later. Like when you do shed that, what happens?
Oof.
You know what I mean?
Magic. That's what's gonna happen.
Because it's interesting because it could go one of 2 ways. It could go the way where you just now you have no limit and you become super shredded, or it could go the way where you're like, that's not my identity, so it's not even something that I necessarily fight for, is to be the strongest kid out there.
That is so interesting. Like to lose that part of me where it's like I don't need to track every fucking meal. Like I can just live.
And still look amazing.
Yeah.
But you don't even like, oh my gosh, I had another cup of rice for dinner.
Right.
I better write it down.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how that.
So when you come back on in a couple of years,
yeah,
we'll see where I'll be curious to see that. As far as you, so that was the first question. Second question, as far as like your business and all the things you mentioned, what was that process been like as far as getting to where you are now? That's something you always dreamt of. The work you do.
Yeah, as far as the properties, so the first one was on my dreams list. So we were talking about my dreams list just a little bit, but to buy a property, and then I stumbled on Bigger Pockets podcast and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and when I was 19, so I went down this whole rabbit hole, and the book was The House Hacking Strategy by Craig Curelop. Pretty much was just like a game plan, how to buy a house and then rent it out and have my roommates pay my mortgage, and I cash flow. Mm-hmm. So I did it, and it was very simple. So I've been living for free and cash flowing since I was 20, so over 2 years.
Good for you.
And then I used some of that income plus my working income to buy a second property, which we Airbnb. And so
Both in Minnesota?
Both in St. Paul. They're like 5 minutes from each other. So I'm trying to get the third one this fall, and then also Airbnb it, because I found out, I don't know if doing business with family is always a good idea, but my mom fucking crushes the backside of the Airbnb stuff, and that was
sometimes it works with family.
Yeah, that was an experiment that's gone awesome, and she wants to run it back and do another one.
That's
so
amazing.
Hey, don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yeah, you're one of the lucky ones in that sense.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because not everyone has that, but if you're able to utilize your family in that sense.
Yeah.
So you've done these things. You're only fucking 22 years old, dude. I'm very curious. Like, where did this ambition start? What was the thing that sparked you? Like, I'm gonna do these things.
Because that's pretty young, and then to follow through with it.
Yeah. I think it has to come from where I grew up. I feel like, which was a town of 1,000 people in the middle of the state of Minnesota. The closest stoplight is 20 minutes away. Like, literally just cornfields and blue collar. And I don't know if growing up there was an ambition of man, I want to be super successful, or I mean, success is all relative kind of anyway, but I don't know if there was ever this desire to be this uber successful type person. I think it was just a desire to be something, because for me, my family, my cousins, we all grew up in a 2-mile radius. We played baseball and football in the backyard every day growing up, and I was the non-athletic one. And I almost might not have been, but compared to them,
right?
I had a bunch of my cousins played college baseball, and I just always felt like I was the outcast. So I think there was always this desire in me to prove myself to somebody, especially to myself. And I think that's where the burning fire comes from still.
Of wanting to prove yourself?
Yeah, I have these a chip on my shoulder. And
do you think it's from yourself, from your community, from your parents, a coach, a teacher, all of the above?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I honestly think it's just to myself at this point. Yeah, because even it's kind of hard for me to go back home. I don't know if that's a common thing for a lot of people, but even talking about going back home puts a pit in my stomach, because
what I'm curious. I feel the same way. I'm just curious what it is you why don't you want to go back home? Is it family conflict? Is it just the kind of people that are there? There's nothing to do.
Well, I could pick rocks in the cornfield, but
that sounds like a great Friday night to me.
They are great people, but I think part of it is they still see me for the version I was when I was there, and so I've shaken and dismissed a couple of identities at this point through coaching and going to Tony Robbins and doing the inner work on myself. But when I go back there, I think they still see me for who I was, and that's a kind of a hard place to be in when
it's you don't see I've been doing the work, I've been putting in these steps, and you still see me as the person who I was before all of this.
Yeah,
I understand that.
And you say goodbye to that version of Alex a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and you've met several more and say goodbye to those too. And they're just Alex, you're 18, and no, you're 22.
In a completely different set. Different world.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that makes it hard to go back home.
Yeah. No, I get that. I can't. When I go back home, I get angry. I get very angry. And also, one of the things for me is seeing